going to start a little bit talking a bit about worldview because it connects so much with connecting with people when you teach. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about worldview and then about ways that people learn and ways to teach, especially cross-culturally. You know, I was thinking about this talk. I had a memory of a little visitor of ours to Gambella. He was 3 years old, that age of wisdom, where they know everything. And, you know, when you first come to Gambella, it's really hot. You're really tired. So the first thing I did for Nathan was that I offered him a glass of water, which he accepted. And he kind of wandered into the living room holding his water, kind of like this. And he looks down and he says, "What amazes me is the way the water just jumps out of the glass." And I just love seeing the world through the eyes of how others see them, especially 3-year-olds, but just through the eyes of others. And when you want to teach health or health behaviors, it's very helpful to actually be open to seeing how people see the world, what their underlying assumptions and belief about life, about the issues they deal with in health are all about. And so you can connect so much more effectively. I was teaching a group of theological wives in Kenya, wives of theological students in Kenya, and we had a health class. And one day I had to be away, and a group of visiting Western doctors had come to teach them about family planning. And you know, in Africa, family planning means contraception, the birth control pill. So when I got back, I asked the ladies, "Will you share with me what you learned?" And one of them said, "Oh, let me share," because they had just recently come to my village in Pakat, and now they were here, and I love what they said. So I said, "Oh, okay, Rael, tell us what they said." And she said, "Well, they taught us that if you have fewer children, you have more resources to be able to feed them. You have more money to be able to send them to school. You have more energy because you have less bleeding." All kinds of things. She had obviously connected so well with the teaching and really understood. And I said, "Man, you know, it sounds like you really enjoyed the teaching." "Oh, yes." Did the rest of the village enjoy it?" "Yes." "How many came?" "Oh, the whole village came." "And did they understand just the way you did?" "Oh, yes, doctor." "And did they like it like you did?" "Oh, yes, doctor." "And how many used the birth control?" "Oh, not one, doctor." Not one. Now, because I had a relationship, I could ask them, why? Why did nobody use it? And she says, "Well, in our Pakat culture, what happens is that when you have a baby, it is the tradition that you go back home and live with your mother and father, and your husband lives with his other wives. And you must do this for a 2-year period to devote to the baby." Now, as it happens, if you ever visit Pakat, like all the kids are like 9 months apart in age. So often what happens is that the husbands visit. And if the husbands visit, you must be a good wife. You must receive your husband. This is all okay. But if you take family planning, it means that you are planning to have your husband visit. Your heart attitude is wrong before the gods. And therefore, if you are planning to disobey this 2-year separation, then you are vulnerable to the curse that the gods put upon disobedient wives. And the curse is that your child will die of diarrheal illness. So not one woman was willing to sacrifice the safety of her child, even though she'd understood so well. So all of a sudden, our discussion about health switched into a discussion about worldview, which is a discussion about belief. What does it mean now that we are becoming Christians as a community and husbands have only one wife? What does it mean that Jesus became a curse for us and so that we might have the blessings of Abraham. And often when you're looking at worldview together, you look in terms of questions that you ask, because it's a discovery. And what you're doing is you're helping them discover some wonderful things about the world, and you're helping equip them and empower them to work together to use ideas that are both valuable old ideas and valuable new ideas, and sort of like to choose from their treasure store of old and new ideas, to choose that which enhances life. Oh, yes, so I was going to say that worldview is really a study of perception and the assumptions that are the underlying assumptions that shape your behavior and therefore shape your actions, including how we respond to and take care of health issues. It sort of reminds me of a time when my son David here was 3 years old. Again, the age of wisdom. And we were living in Kenya, and we had so many different people groups that we were working with. And one day David had this peanut butter sandwich, just a thing of bread and peanut butter on top. And he was eating it like he was eating the top millimeter layer and leaving this intact piece of bread without the peanut butter. It was just fascinating to watch. I was just watching him, fascinated. And I said, David, why are you eating your peanut butter like that? And you know how 3-year-olds are. He looked at me with that, of course. He said, Mom, it's my culture. They're so smart. So even at that age, they get that sense. Culture shapes behavior. This is why I'm starting out talking about teaching health by talking about culture. Now, in the West, traditionally, we have viewed disease as a disorder of function, that something is not working properly. And we have viewed healing as a restoration of function. Health, then, is good functioning of the body. Now, we've actually grown in our perceptions in the West, and now we realize that health includes well-being and spiritual and emotional issues. But this traditional understanding of health made it useful to compartmentalize and to describe. The West, medically, is interested in answering the question, how? How do we get malaria, for example? How does disease happen? It ties in with the biblical worldview that is shown to us in Genesis, have dominion. And you know that word dominion has two meanings. It means both to rule, but also to tend and to care, to take care of creation. So it is a good view to have in terms of Western health, that we want to have good stewardship of creation and take care. The African worldview tends to view disease in terms of a disorder of relationship, and healing in terms of restoration of relationship. So therefore, you can go to the witch doctor who will make a sacrifice to appease that one who is offended, whether that is the ancestors or the elemental spirits or relatives or whoever. You know, traditionally, Africans tend to believe there actually is only one God. They do believe that the spiritual world, please come on in, the spiritual world is well populated. But they believe that God is inaccessible because we've offended him, so therefore we work with things that are closer, like the ancestral spirits. And so that's why you get this sense. But actually, there's an open door to the gospel, because if God, this inaccessible God that you can only reach through sacrificing to, the ancestral spirits or spirits that are closer, when you get to hear that God has provided the sacrifice, and he has come near, you can see there's an open door to the gospel in Africa. Now, the African worldview of health ties in biblically with that principle that if you eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, you will die, and that we can see death and disease in terms of a break in relationship. So it is also a very good worldview to have about health. So rather than describe and compartmentalize, the African view of health tends to see health as a seamless unity of the physical and the spiritual realms, and is more interested in answering the question, why? We answer, we say, well, malaria comes. How does it come? How does the mosquito give us malaria? And one of my students in Africa said, yeah, but it doesn't tell us who sent the mosquito. So exploring together how we view life, health, and well-being can be a bridge to understanding each other when we go and we teach health. It can be a bridge to communicating clearly and to learning from one another. It can give insight and choice. It can open the way to learn more ways to do that which enhances life and which takes care of life, especially taking care of our children. And it can equip people to choose that which enhances life from their treasure store of old and new ideas. So when you come to a village or to a people group and you want to teach health or help change health knowledge or change health behaviors, it's so helpful to ask a number of questions and try and get a sense of what's the baseline like. What is life like? You can ask, what are the day-to-day tasks or daily routine? Or you can just see this as you begin to live with the people. Then, when you teach health and change health behaviors, if you're aware of what the day-to-day demands on life are, you're not going to ask them to do something that's really not doable. That's really too far out of what they can do. You want to ask things like, well, how many get sick since the last time you went to church? How many of your kids got sick? Or since the last new moon, how many kids of your family got sick? If one gets sick, did they all get sick? And what types of sickness did you get? And how many children are in your family? Have you had any kids that have died? How old were they when they died? What's changed from the way you used to live to how you live now? Because that can have a huge impact on health. What foods do you feed your children? How many times since the last new moon have you served meat in a meal? It just gives you these ideas of the baseline of how the people that you're connecting with, how day to day they live. Now, sometimes you want to directly ask questions about health that tie in with worldview. For example, you can ask, well, what do you believe about health? And the answers you get are a window into discipleship, when you want to disciple people. So one thing that one of our folks told me when I first got there was that what they believe is that when my child dies, it's because God wanted him to die. And there's nothing I could do or even should do about that. So then, when I had an opportunity to start with Bible studies, knowing some of these underlying assumptions could direct the choices that I made. So our first Bible study was about that prayer Jesus told us to pray, "Thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven." And, when we look at the kingdom of heaven in Genesis and Revelation, there's no illness, there's no disease, there's no suffering. And Jesus is asking us to pray with him. In Philippians, to have a participation in the work of the gospel, a participation in the Spirit, a partnership. And as, we're teaching these things, you can see the faces of the women start to light up. And they say, "You're kidding. Do you mean it gives God pleasure that I can do something to help my child?" So you can see how this connection, health teaching, worldview, faith, all ties together. You want to aim when you're teaching health, of course, for sustainability. When I first learned about teaching health in communities, I learned it in Kenya, and their motto for their community-based healthcare program was, we have done it ourselves. You know, if you know that you are making these changes and you have ownership, then it's far more likely to last. So when the team that wanted to teach health went in, what they really wanted to teach about was water purification and diarrhea, because that's the #1 killer. But they were wise enough to say, what is it that is on your heart? What do you want to learn about? And what the community wanted to learn about, they wanted to learn about how to take care of their little tiny toddlers, because so many of them were falling into the cooking fires. So the team taught I think even just one woman, how to build up mud around her cooking fire to make it safe. And if the toddler fell, he fell into this wall. And then that one woman went to neighbor, taught it around. And when the teaching had percolated through the village, the admission rate for toddler burn in the local hospital went down by 70%. Wow. Also, the connection had been made with the community. Now they had seen a real change. Now they actually did want to learn about diarrhea. And you know, those of you who, I think I mentioned the other night or morning, you know, when they learned how to purify water, to place water in clear containers in the sunlight for 5 hours, it kills off the UV radiation and renders the water safe for drinking, and to make dish drying racks so you could put your dishes out in the sun rather than stack them wet in the dark. When they had made those 2 interventions in the village, the local hospital told me, yeah, our admission rate for dehydration from diarrhea has now decreased by 90%. You know, as a medical doctor, it's very tempting to give out medical treatments, and actually we love it. I mean, we love to give curative care. How beautiful to communicate the worth of a person and that we care for you. But I know that if I can easily give the same medicines for the same problem and send them back to the same environment, the same village, so they can get the same diseases again and come back to get the same medicines. So yes, there's a place for curative care. It really, you know, it's really foundational, but you also need the preventative. You can save more lives through preventative teaching than anything else. When Eddie Dawsels, who represented for us our major donor for our teaching program in Ethiopia, Anglican Aid, he came to visit the program after we had been up and running for a year. So he talked to the pastor of St. Barnabas Church, and he said, you know, Duresh, the year before this program was up and running, how many children's funerals did you hold? And Duresh said, I held 50, which was, you know, about the norm. And then Eddie said, okay, Duresh, well, now that the program has been up and running for a year, how many children's funerals have you held? And Duresh said, I've held none. And I said, why? He said, well, it's the health program. So later I go back to Duresh and say, Duresh, you've got to be kidding. From 50 to nothing. And it's the health program. He's, you know, tell me more. And he said, well, yes, the women see that the children of those who attend the health program are healthier, but they also say that nobody has cared for us like this. We want to get to know you folks who are coming out to teach us, because I'm not teaching in the village. The Africans are teaching. We want to get to know you. We want to spend some time with you. And then they begin to say, you know what? Now we have choices. This learning has given us choices. It used to be when our babies got sick, we'd take them to the witch doctor. He would gouge out the 2 unerupted bottom teeth to release the evil spirits. And then there'd be so much swelling and pain in the mouth that the babies couldn't breastfeed, and then they would die of dehydration. But now We know we can pray, we can ask for help, we can come to our friends. It's giving us choices. You know, in a consensus culture, you want to talk to as many as you can and make changes in a way that includes everybody. I had gone around to visit our various churches, asking them what they did, what they wanted to learn, and then discussing this with the leaders, the main leaders in the Mothers Union. Then these ones were the ones then who went around to our individual churches to talk about the idea of bringing in a representative that was chosen from your local church, your local Mothers Union, but choosing somebody who had a heart to learn and a heart to share what they've learned. And then to send these one representative in for training, and then to the Gambella Anglican Center, then they would come back and teach all the Mothers Union. And then the idea was that, you know, they would go out and then teach one other person. But instead, they so ran with this teaching that some groups, you know, they take a separate offering on a Sunday, maybe $1 worth. They go out, they buy some coffee, they go into a village, they start an Ethiopian coffee ceremony, they roast the coffee, the aroma draws the villagers, they invite them to have a cup of coffee, and would you like to attend a training? And this way, the men, the women, the Muslim community, people from other churches, they all come to hear the training, and some get so excited they go out every week and do a training. So it's just fabulous. So, oh, right. You know that old saying, you know, we all know it. You give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. You teach a man how to fish, you feed him for life. But if you teach him how to teach others to fish, you feed a nation. So keep that in mind. You know, when we come to serve, to teach health, to take care, one thing that's incredibly important is the attitude with which we come. You know, Mother Teresa once said, it's not so much what you do, it's the love with which you do it. And, you know, in a cross-cultural setting, the heart attitude that you come with is both more important and more apparent. People, you know, normally what we communicate, 90% of what we communicate is nonverbal normally. And people are watching to learn. You know, we get the privilege of having visiting teams. And somehow the heart attitude and the preparation of prayer with which they come is very apparent. And if it's apparent to us, it's even more apparent to the Africans. So those that come wanting to serve, wanting to befriend, wanting to learn, come with respect. We notice these are the ones that the Africans love, that the Africans have been blessed by, and that have had a lasting impact. Those people that come with a kind of, you know, I'm interested in finding out, and it's kind of like a tourist, and can I take your picture? And you know, that's interesting the way you're doing it. You know, that's not terrible, but they have no lasting impact. You know, we can see that. Even the setup of how you teach, this is why we decided to put the chairs around like this. The setup can speak a difference between, okay, I'm standing up here at the front and I'm the expert and you guys are the learners, to, okay, we're going to explore learning this, we're going to explore the subject together, we're learning together, I'm going to share what I know, I'm interested in what you know. And it helps people to ask questions, it gives people more space to, you know, to make mistakes. If you're correctable, you know, if they have more courage to give suggestions. And if you can say, wow, I didn't think of that, or thank you, you're right about that one, then they've got the courage to maybe, you know, go out and try something, to make mistakes. You know, it's okay. I realize learning's a process. I'm not going to get it all at once. So that's very, very helpful too. Make sure that what you're teaching actually connects with the people that you're teaching. And I think one of the important questions to ask is, how do people learn in your area? For example, if you want to use drawings to teach, how many of you would guess what this is? Let's hear a guess. What? Cup. Well, do you know, if you've never, ever been to school, this is a circle with two lines and another line. You know, we're so used to, understanding pictures as something that demonstrates something. So you need to be careful and not assume that you can write right away. Now, in most places, the kids have had a chance to go to school. So if your people have kids in school, they know what pictures are like. But it's just interesting not to make that assumption. The other thing is, are your people used to using concrete thinking? Instead of this stands for that, taking it very literally. Rosemary, who works with us, used to be a missionary for Tear Fund, and she had been involved in a health teaching where they went out to teach birth control in terms of the condom use, or use of condoms. So they took a broomstick and they put a condom on the broomstick to show how you do things. And then, they did the teaching and they went away. And a year later, they came back to visit. And they said, well, how is it? And yes, you can hear it coming. And they said, it doesn't work. And as she looked around, she saw outside of every house a broomstick with a condom on it. So be careful about the way people are going to perceive. Don't assume that they're going to learn by this stands for that kind of thing. Now, oral learners really are not used to learning in terms of, okay, fact A, fact B, fact C, fact D. We're so used to it because we've had a whole lifetime of school. But only 2 of the ladies in these 4 villages I surveyed had teaching, and it was only up to grade 2 level. So actually none of the ladies that come to my training have had any opportunity to see pictures or to anything. So when we teach, we need to teach in a way that connects with oral learners, and that's mostly story, drama, demonstration, hands-on doing it and practicing it. I'm going to give you an example of a story. That's okay. I'm going to start with this one about learning per se. Alrighty. So this story, learning together, let's go through it as if we were teaching it. One thing oral learners love is they love repetition, and they love songs, and they love rhythm. So here we go. Every day, every day, every day, the mamas would send their little girls through the tall grass to get to the river to get water. Sometimes their brothers would go with them to get to fish. When the little girls grew up and started to have their own families, they would send the new little girls through the tall grass every day, every day, every day, through the tall grass to the river to get water. Whoops, I should say, and even the grandparents, they also, every day, would go through the tall grass to the river to get water. Everybody knew this was the way to get water. A school teacher came to their area and taught them many good things. But then one day, the teacher said something stupid. She said the children should not go through the tall grass to the river. The mamas in the village were confused. Every day, the children walked through the tall grass to the river, and they were just fine. When the mamas were young girls, they walked through the tall grass to the river, and when even the grandparents, when they were young, they walked through. So everybody knows this is the way. Stupid. But something had changed. Snakes had moved into the area and had multiplied. Now there were many snakes in the tall grass. One day, one of the mamas saw a snake in the tall grass, and the snake bit her little girl. As the mama ran to the village to get help for her little girl, she cried out, "Don't let the children walk through the tall grass. There are snakes in there. I've seen it with my own eyes. And a snake has bitten my little girl." The mamas gathered together. As they gathered together to help the little girl, they began to talk. How can we keep our children safe from the snakes in the grass? They had many different ideas. One mama who had many tools, she said, "I know," she said. "We can clear away the tall grass to make a pathway for the kids so that when they walk to the river, they can see any snakes coming, they'll be safe." One mama who lived by the road said, "I know what we can do. We can send the kids around by the road through the tall grass. By the road away from the tall grass, and they can get to the river safely that way." And one other mama who had an axe said, "I know what we can do. There's that huge tree. And if we cut it down, they could climb over the tree and stay out of the tall grass that way." Now, which mama had the right idea? And I tell you, it was so fun to hear the discussions. Oh, this one, no, this one, no, this one, no, that one. And like as the women are all talking one to another, it just had so much fun. Of course, all the mamas were right. Now that they knew the reason why the children needed to stay away from the tall grass, they had many different ideas. And all the ideas were good. They learned together that there can be more than one way of taking care of a problem. They learned that it is easy to do something to take care of a problem when you know what causes it. So, there's a couple of key things here. I have seen it with my own eyes.
Every day.
Oh, we just, the more you repeat and you get the smiles coming, it's so fun. Well, I brought, for the water purification thing and diarrhea, I brought magnifying glasses. And so they were having lots of fun seeing how, oh my goodness, it looks bigger. And of course, they do know that glasses help see. So first of all, they're looking at the magnifying glass and then looking through the binoculars, and it's even bigger, and then a microscope. And then I showed them some computer pictures of germs. And they had never seen a germ before or even heard about them. And they're looking at these things and they're going, "That is in our water? I've seen it with my own eyes." So that's an important thing. The other question I asked after I said this story is, I asked the ladies, why were they able to learn from the mama and not the expert teacher? And of course, the mama's walked in our shoes. She knows our situation. The stranger doesn't know. She doesn't know what we go through. She's just being silly with that one. So that's another thing. And of course, the fact that no one solution is right. There's an awful fear I found when I teach health. People, as they start learning with you, they think there's only one way to do the thing, and I have to get it right, and I probably won't get it right. And when you're relaxed, and you could do this or you could do that. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. I didn't think of that one. It really gives permission, and it's much more effective. Okay.
Teach in English?
Well, I do, but none of my ladies speak English. So as I'm telling a story, I'll say, all the mamas were right. And then in Anuak, Taraj will say, all the mamas were right. And then Isaac will say in Newer, all the mamas were right. And in one corner, there's translation going on in Opo, and in another, there's Maban. And we get into a rhythm. This is also why it's fun to make it sing-song and to make it relaxed and to do things. So, yeah, unfortunately, I mean, I try and teach or speak in the heart language when I can, but I just don't know enough for these trainings. It's just too bad.
Are you showing them pictures while you're telling them?
I'm showing them these pictures.
Do they
Then,
understand what a question mark is?
yeah, but I had to make sure. And a check mark. Yeah, exactly. You see, you're a good learner here. Because you can't assume that they know what a question mark is. But they do. So, yeah, that's an excellent question. Let's see if there's anything else. How about, just for fun, I'll go to an actual health story. And because we've talked about burns, I'll do the burns also because it's shorter. Okay, let's play this one. So,
Did you want to know that it was, 2:38 or not?
is it 2:38? Yeah, and we have okay, thanks. That's good, okay.
I didn't want to press the issue.
No, but good, thank you. All right, so burns. So here's one day, a young woman saw a lion take one of her valuable goats. Quickly she ran to her friend, the wise woman who lived next to her. "What can I do to protect my goats from the lion?" she asked her friend. Her wise friend said, "Put a wall between your goats and the lion. That wall will keep your goats safe from the lion." So the young woman built a wall of sticks and mud around her goats. Now her goats were protected from the lion. The young woman cooked a good meal to celebrate. She invited her friend to come and share the meal with her. But then something terrible happened. Her young baby fell into the cooking fire. His little hand was badly injured. Quickly, the wise friend told the young mother to put the baby's hand into the water. Water helps cool the burn and helps to stop the pain. This helps the burnt part to heal more quickly. The wise woman said, "See where the burnt part has made little bumps on the baby's hand. These little bumps are very good. The fluid inside these bumps helps the burnt part to heal well. Do not break these bumps open. Leave them alone as they're helping the baby to heal." Then her wise friend put some healing ointment on the baby's burn. When the baby fell asleep, they put him under a mosquito net to keep the flies away from the burnt area on his hand. Keeping the area clean and keeping flies away from the burn will help it to heal more quickly. While the baby slept, the young mother and her friend talked together. "How can I keep my baby protected from the fire?" the young mother asked. Then the young woman thought, "I've kept my goats safe from the lion by putting a wall between the goats and my goats and the lion. I can keep my baby safe from the fire by putting a wall between my baby and the fire." While the baby slept, the women prepared some mud and put it on the rocks they had put around the cooking fire. In this way, they made a wall of rocks and mud on two sides of the cooking fire. Now the cooking fire would have a wall on two sides, with two openings for the firewood and for air to reach the fire. While the young mother was cooking, she would still have to watch her baby carefully. But now the cooking area was just a little safer for her baby. The women sat down to rest and to have a cup of tea. As they watched the baby sleep, they talked about how to care for the baby's burn. The wise friend said, "You must wash the wound every day until it's healed. You can make cleaning water by adding a pinch of salt to a glass of clean water. That is water that's made clean by boiling or by putting it in the sun. If you have papaya fruit growing in your area, add 4 drops of papaya sap from the fruit that's growing on the tree. You add that to a bottle of water and use that to wash the burn. It will help the burn to heal more quickly." The wise friend said, "It's good to use papaya sap, but if you have no papaya, then just clean with a pinch of salt in the water. Cleaning the burn every day with water and salt will help the burn to heal well, because in the heat and everything, infection's a huge problem. After you wash the wound, put some healing ointment on this. Do this every day. You can make healing ointment from a plant called aloe vera using the inside part of the leaves. Or you can make healing ointment by just putting fresh papaya fruit on the burn. If you do not have either papaya or aloe vera, you can make a healing ointment using a candle and some cooking oil. Put 2 small Sini cups of oil into a cooking pot. Then put 1 candle in the pot with the oil and heat this until the candle's melted. When this cools, it makes a good healing ointment. And if you want, you can crush up a moringa seed and put that in the oil because moringa stops infections. The wise friend said, do not forget to give the baby something to take care of pain. Paracetamol is a good medicine to use to take away the pain. If you're not able to make a healing ointment, you can buy some ointment to put on the burn at the medical clinic or pharmacy. The wise friend said, remember, to help heal a burn, you need to do these things. Put the burned part into water right away. Wash the wound every day with cleaning water. Put healing ointment on the burn. Keep the burned area clean. Keep flies away from it. And give medicine to help with pain. The young mother thanked her wise friend for showing her how to take care of a burn. So, you were asking, do they get to see these pictures? Now, you can't possibly remember a story like that after hearing it once. So we give them a package of these pictures to take back to the community. But the day after the initial training and everything, our second day is learning how to teach. So they get together, they each get a package of pictures, and then they get into small groups. Now we make it very clear to them that nobody of them is going to remember the whole story. That's fine, we don't expect that. But together, they can help each other. What did that picture mean again? And one of them will remember, or the healthcare facilitator is helping, who's had more training. She will help them remember, and together they get to the story. Then everybody's got mobiles. They are really encouraged. You know what? You are going to forget a picture. Phone up. And ask, what did that picture mean? So in this way, we're able to have something as a reminder and a focus for learning. Let's do an example of drama. So I can embarrass Louise.
While Wendy is pulling that up, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that Wendy is the artist of all the pictures and also the author of the stories.
So did you have art training, or is this something you just acquired?
And my mom was an artist and my daughter's an artist. And I love art. And I love stories. So isn't it fun the way God will give you things that you naturally love and you can use this, in your area, wherever you find yourself. Alrighty, here we go. We're teaching about transference of germs in eye infections. Oh no! Oh yes. Wait a second. All right, here we go. Baby Louise has an eye infection. It's oatmeal on her eye. They're horrified at the look of it. They're looking at it like, it's so funny. And they're laughing because they're embarrassed. So, of course, you can't use the same cloth to clean the good eye. This ham, she stole the show, I tell you. It's all being translated, as you can hear. That was a freebie. That wasn't part of the script. I'm showing them the dirty, why. So what this didn't show was, and then we cleaned up everybody. I said, okay, let's do this again. And Louise put some more oatmeal on her eye. I go, oh, baby Louise has an eye infection. Let me clean it. And so I wiped. And then I turned to the lady and say, shall I wipe the other eye? And they go, no! And I wish that had been caught on the camera. It was so funny, so funny.
I love how you're stopping all the way through to ask, should I do this? And then everybody translates.
Yeah, and they're talking to each other.
Yeah.
It's just so fun. Because you're building trust, you're having fun. Do you know that we learn so much better when we're laughing anyway? That's a scientific proven fact, so that's great. Let's see, demonstration. Oh yeah, I was going to show, sorry about this, guys. I was going to show, when I did a teaching on malaria treatment and prevention and scabies together when little things cause big problems, there was a lot of treatment in that. It was a kind of long thing that I thought, I don't know how am I going to be able to help focus them. And then when I was demonstrating the different treatments, because there's no permethrin there to treat scabies, but there's things that will kill scabies, and scabies is such a do you know what scabies is? It's this awful, really itchy skin infection, highly transmittable, and there's no medicine for it in our area, but there's local treatments. And when you draw a picture like this, the challenge is to get the facts in there, but to not overcrowd it with so many things that it's just not understandable. So, yes, you can use you can use Omo soap, laundry soap, and get a neem twig, which has got antibacterial, and chew it to make a brush, and then make a paste of Omo detergent scrub, and it will kill the lesions. Or a mixture, 1 part or equal parts kerosene cooking oil, or neem crushed up, neem leaves crushed up, 1 part to cooking oil. So when I was doing the training, we did have a visiting team, and they would be crushing up the neem and showing or mixing up the laundry detergent and acting it out. this is probably my worst slide because it's the least understandable, and it's really confusing. So I knew they had to act out. I had grown some artemisia to show them that, you know, you can take a handful, put it in boiling water, and then over the course of the day, drink 4 cups of artemisia, which is curative for malaria, free, of course, and far fewer side effects than any of our antimalarials. Or if it's too bitter, you can take, you know, divide it into 4 and put either honey or this sickly sweet Vimto, and eat it that way. It's again, the team is demonstrating this. We've got the boiling water, we've got the artemisia plants, what they look like when you pick them, how you use a handful or it's dried. We have the teapot of the right shape, we've got the glasses of the right size, and they're doing it and they're mixing up the Vimto and everybody's trying it. So demonstration is really helpful.
And they understand the numbers, like 7 suns is for 7 days?
I say it out.
Okay.
You know, I've sort of taught them enough that this means, and with the translators, because I wasn't sure if they understood that at all. This is just a picture before we started the program. The Mothers Union coordinator, Achua, going around with one of our facilitators who translated to the local areas to show them choosing someone to come for training who will then go back and train. And she's telling a story that this one Mothers Union is like one little kernel of corn, but when she comes back, she can train many who know, like planting a kernel of corn and then getting many kernels. So. Okay, so another thing that's important when you are teaching, just to go back again to heart attitude and being really sent out to make disciples. What the women have actually said to me, I'm quite honored to have heard this, but they said, you know, we can trust what you teach us because we see your heart. We know you're a sister. We know you love Jesus. We start out our training, we start out with worship, we start out with a Bible study like that one, Thy Kingdom Come, some issue that they're facing, some worldview that they want to have a biblical grounding. What can I stand on when I don't remember all the traditional training now? The older people mostly have died. I'm getting weird ideas coming home from my school kids that I don't really understand. Show me what the Bible says. And so we have this grounding in biblical worldview. Then we have prayer practicum. Then we get around to the health story. And after that, a practical skill, whether that's training and doing something like making oral rehydration solution or making that healing ointment, which we did, or something like training how to thread a needle or what have you. And so it's a full-orbed way of training. And we, you know, in the church, we have, first of all, so much more than any NGO could ever hope to have. You know, you go as an NGO, you're trying to find people that are trusted and embedded in the community, and usually you find ones who can understand the language, university students who inevitably move away. But here, Mothers Union, they've already got a track record of loving their community, being there, being trusted, who they want to learn. So you've already got that structure, and you've got prayer, and you've got the presence of God with you, knitting our hearts together. So it makes all the difference. You know, whenever we do any medical intervention, because in the West we're so used to compartmentalizing. We put on our medical hat and then we take it off, we put on our I can worship God now hat. And so we can easily get into, I'm just going to teach the facts of my medical thing, or I'm just going to give you the treatment. But if we can take the discipline of connecting what we do with prayer, it makes all the difference. If we only focus on medicine, they'll only focus on medicine. If we focus on God, medicine, health, life, one connected thing, they do as well. You know, when I was in Kenya, we could start each visit with prayer. Then I moved back to Toronto for a while, and first Toronto, you don't have permission to talk about anything spiritual, which is fine. It's seen, the office is seen as a place where people are vulnerable. Talking about religious things is an imposition. So I would instead, because I wouldn't have that open permission, every time I put my stethoscope on the chest of one of my patients, that to me was a physical cue to intercede for them. Not with a ton of words, because I didn't have time, but just a lifting up into the presence of God. And I would tie, or looking through the lab result, just lifting up. So you tied it in. In Kenya, where we could start with prayer, I'd come up against a problem. I had somebody who'd had an axe fall on his foot or something. We couldn't get the material off the wound. So we said, okay, we got to start with prayer. We prayed, the thing fell off and was just open. And in Pittsburgh, where we didn't want to have medical care prayer seen as a substitute for medical care, we always finished with prayer. We'd love to offer to pray for you if that's something you're comfortable with. And then we would see so much in healing. So wherever you are in the mission world, and in terms of whether that's your medical practice here or cross-culturally or what have you, we have a God who is present and who loves the ordinary things of life. When I see people in when I see people in Ethiopia, and they're wanting some medicine, we'll pray grace over the medicine if they want that. It's all one thing. God is God of all. Now, what time is it?
Oh, since you asked, I think it's about 3 o'clock exactly.
Okay, because I really wanted to leave some time for question and answer and then to close in prayer. So we got 15 minutes for Q&A. So does anybody have questions?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
How did you know those local cures? Was that part of your medical training, or did you learn it from people within Ethiopia?
Again, I think, God uses natural interest. I'm naturally interested in the tiny things. I would love that as a medical doctor in Pittsburgh. I would love to learn about the tiny things, the way to sit, the way, you do things that stop recurrent back pain or what have you. And it was the same here. What is locally available? You don't want people to jump out of their skin, and you have to climb Mount Kilimanjaro in order to get those 3 berries that will cure you. You want something that dovetails in with what's available and what can they do. And so sometimes I would Google, what's in the area. Sometimes I would ask people who'd worked in the medical profession in the area, well, what do you do? What do local people do? We'd all be sharing ideas, and then if they said, well, I use such and such, I would research such and such to see, does it have any harm? You remember I was talking about moringa. If you feed, if you eat the roots, it's actually very good for stomach ailments, but it can give, especially in young children, a kind of neuropraxia, a kind of nerve weakness. So I wasn't going to teach to have the roots. I just said, just use the leaves. And indeed, when I asked the women, what do you know about moringa? Some people groups said, we know you can only use it once in a while. And that's a good thing, only once in a while for the roots. But you can use the leaves every day. And to clarify some of these things, it's just really helpful. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. My background's in public health, so I love everything you're doing. So I have lots of questions, but I'll start with one because I don't want to monopolize the time. I loved your first story about the family planning, the Western docs coming in and talking about family planning. I work on family planning a lot. And so just a few questions related to that story. Do you think if it had been, because it was in Kenya, right?
Yes.
So do you think if it had been Kenyan nurses or doctors or community health workers telling other Kenyans about family planning, if maybe the Kenyan women in the audience would have felt more comfortable bringing up the ideas of, oh, we're taught, 2 years, and then while my husband goes with his other wife, if they would have hashed those concepts out? I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. It's a good question. First of all, of course, there's a lot of different people groups even just within one country in Africa. So what the Pakat do is a little bit different than what another people group might do in Kenya itself. So, and then there is a general, making a generalization right away across all the people groups in Kenya, but if you could make a generalization, you're taught to really respect the teacher. It's polite. So you don't want to ask those questions. You really, when I did my community survey before the project started, I knew some of those questions, I knew people would feel like I have to be polite. So they wouldn't answer. They'd think, oh, she wants to hear this. So I had our clergy go out and say, what about this and that? Because I knew I could get an answer that wasn't trying hard to please me. And it was, even then, one of our guys at one of our clergy said to me, when I asked this question about how many of your children died, the mother said, why do you want to learn that? Like she was afraid. You see. So, if it had been a Pecat woman who knew, then they would have been comfortable. If it had been, and it would have been more effective. If it had been an African who didn't stand up and do the didactic, I am the expert teacher, who didn't come in just one time, and who got to know the people and share stories and be vulnerable with them. If you're vulnerable and transparent, it's just a lot easier to befriend and to learn together. So yes, it might have, but not necessarily help. Yeah. How many missed that story, Anne? Because some of you, it was a good story. Yeah. I'll tell you later, or at the beginning of the next workshop.
Did you do inner healing prayer with, in Ethiopia?
Well, I had to start quite subtly. Because I started out and I had some chance, we brought in the clergy once a month for training, and I love inner healing. So I sat down, I was going to do the prayer interview and the prayer encounter basics. And they said, why would you ever want to have anybody come for prayer like that? I thought, okay, we need a little bit more foundational stuff. And so what you do, I had a woman who came in for neck pain, and so I asked her, how did it, and back pain, how did it happen? Well, Louise, you can help me if you can remember her story. Her husband had died. She was given to her husband's brother. He died, and then she was given to another male relative who was really, really young, who hated her and rejected her. So as he was kicking her out of the house, he was throwing rocks at her. And he wounded her back. And so, as well as praying for the back, we immediately went into praying for healing of memories. Recently, I had a lady who had stomach pain, and her husband, I think, had been in Sudan and was killed in the war. She just wanted prayer for the stomach pain, but I was connected enough that I thought, I didn't even know her but I knew she knew people who were connected with me and who'd brought her. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to pray. Jesus, enter into that grief, and we started to, so subtly, but with tiny bits of training, and then we had the Soma team come in and do inner healing. And now I feel like the door is open, that we can deepen in training and inner healing. I love that. But it's part of every healing encounter, isn't it, really?
So is it translated as you pray, or are you praying in English?
I always ask them to translate prayers because I want them to be able to pray with me. And they don't want to translate prayers. Prayers, that's a personal thing. I say, no, please translate, and then they do. Yeah. Yes.
I was wondering, in your area, are there any ACTs available, or are they just really not around? And if they are somewhat around, are you worried about developing resistance? Because I think we're starting to see ACT or artesunate resistance in the area where I am, which we have a lot of medicine compared, I think, to you.
Okay. Define ACT.
Oh, artesunate combined therapy.
Oh, thank you.
So, Coarto.
Okay, thank you. No problem. Yeah, we have a lot, mostly coartem, in the area, and I love it. It's really effective. It's easily available for our people, so we use it all the
It's getting
time.
less effective because the resistance is starting.
Well, I haven't seen a lot of resistance to that yet in our area, maybe because it's not been, in Gambella that long. So resistance is always a difficult thing, and it really is difficult because other treatments are very expensive. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
because for me, it's kind of an ethical problem that for those who can't get or can't afford, fortunately, the government often gives it free, but if they can't get the combined therapy, because the reason they have two drugs is to decrease the resistance. So they could get cured by the herbal artesunate, but with the herbal artesunate, I think you get a lot more underdosing. You're not as sure of the strength, and I suspect that's contributing to the resistance. And if coartem doesn't work, we're really up a creek,
yeah, it's difficult. It really
And
is difficult.
I hesitate to advise people about the leaves. Yes, it works, and yes, it may be their only option, but then again, what if our medicines don't work and everybody suffers? And I just don't know what to do.
Well, we wanted to really emphasize prevention. There's a belief that malaria comes because of cold weather. Well, of course, the rains bring the cold weather, and it's the rains that bring the puddles, and then so we acted that out with our little mosquito there, putting eggs into a puddle and putting eggs into a container close by. Then neem leaves, for example, if you crush them up and put them on, you smell a bit like an onion, but mosquitoes don't like you either, and that's a good natural repellent. And the women a lot of them had already known that in their cooking fires, if they put a lot of neem twigs, the smoke is very effective. I mean, any smoke, but especially neem, and we have neem everywhere where we
I've
live.
even heard some places that people think eating mangoes causes malaria.
Yeah,
Because mango season comes at the time just after the rains.
Exactly. So, these kinds of things you try, if you knew that, like I knew about the cold weather, I don't know if they've got the mango thing, but if I had heard that, but if I'd heard that, I'd have had a picture about it, but I'd heard about the cold weather thing, so I had a picture about that and talked into that, yeah.
Anybody else? No? Okay, so I work for a Christian international health organization, and oftentimes, I love all the data and the stories you've been quoting, because oftentimes when I partner with secular organizations, they don't believe that faith-based organizations are doing good work because the data is not so apparent. So I love the stories you've been telling with the data to back it up.
Yes.
And I'm just curious, and I know you did a community survey in your project in Ethiopia beforehand to kind of get the lay of the land. I'm just curious if, I don't know, I think you said the project, has it been going on a year?
3 years now.
3 years, sorry. If there's been pre or post tests or anything that you have that you've shared with other folks to say, look at this great community health program happening in Gambella.
It is difficult in Ethiopia. In Kenya, hospital statistics you can request. That's why I got the 90% from Tenwick Hospital. But in Ethiopia, no, you can't get that information. So I did do my pre-project survey. I will do a post-project survey, but I don't have access to figures that way. But I thought Eddie's question to Darash was brilliant. How many kids' funerals? So in these softer ways we can show. But perhaps that's where secular institutions, and in Ethiopia I think a secular institution might have a bit more access to records than I would, but I'm not sure. But that's where really we can help benefit each other. Because if you are getting those statistics as an NGO, great, share them with us. We can learn from you. Yeah.
I can ask another question. So, sorry. So my other question is related to when you were telling the story about family planning again and about, multiple husbands, et cetera, depending on the culture. But what we have found, because I think it's great working with mothers' unions, because they reach out to all the moms and the women in the community, and they talk more, let's be honest, than men in any culture. But what we have found is that happens is, you look at family planning, you look at maternal and child health, et cetera, and the root causes often have to do with the men. So what I find in communities is men beat their wives, or men have multiple wives, or there's just a lot of sexual and gender-based violence. So unless we address those issues, it's hard to address the other health issues. And so a lot of what we do is we train religious leaders on family planning, or we train religious leaders on maternal and child health, or HIV, or water, or whatever it is. Because then they're speaking it from the pulpit too. So I'm just curious if in your trainings or in your community, because I think it's equally important to train community health workers and women in the community. And we have found much success in having community health workers or village health teams or whatever you're calling it in the country, combined with the religious leaders, who then if a religious leader says it from the pulpit, they can say, go talk to this community health worker, who then can either help them in the community or refer them to the health center or the hospital. So I'm just curious if anyone here has seen that, or, because I feel like a lot of what we see, it depends on the messenger. So of course women trust women more, and in male-dominated cultures, men will trust men more, and women can't often do things unless the men say it's okay.
I think, I think in my experience, it's a process. So when you learn something that one of the men is sharing with you, for example, one of our priests had been given the wife of one of his uncles who had died. And he was about the same age as this uncle, but the uncle died before they had children. And so he was given the wife to have children for the uncle. And he came to my husband and said, I'm sorry, I have to resign my orders as a priest because my father has, well, actually, first the father in the family took all his children and took them to Kenya, and he didn't know where they were. And then the father said, I have paid the cows, I've bought you your own wife now. You've had enough children for your uncle. She's not really your wife. Now it's time for you to have your own wife and children for you. So he was so grand and sort of like, and the clergy and this guy, they're kind of meeting together. What is most loving to a family? To say yes to everything, or maybe to point the family to, in Christ there is different ways. So one of the things again that we do is we look at the underlying beliefs. The belief is that that when I die, the only way I really have be remembered, and in order to really have an existence in the afterlife, there has to be a memory of me in some way on earth. So I have to have children, and so this is why I had to have children on behalf of my uncle, so that he had a guaranteed afterlife. And so that's one issue, like, do you have an afterlife because you're known of Jesus, because you're loved, because, and that he can actually share this with his father. The other thing that he was worried about was that his father would curse him if he didn't get this new wife. So again, more kind of looking at, Jesus became a curse for us. Do we really need to stand in fear of curses? So this priest had to tussle through those decisions. But as you work with people and get to know what they're facing, it helps you to realize that there are pressures to have multiple wives and to have multiple children, and that's one of them. There is also the fact that life is so arduous. If you have another wife to help you, sometimes it's just a little easier. So we asked our students in Kenya, well, what do you really think of polygamous marriage? Because they were all first-generation Christians. And they said, oh, you know what? It starts in lust and it ends in jealousy. We hate it. But still, that was an issue not to automatically say, well, dismiss this, one of the wives and leave them homeless. It's an issue to struggle with. But the men, from a superficial look where the women are doing all the work and the men are sitting around talking because they don't hunt as much and this and that, to try and understand and behave with respect and try and gently approach, then you're much more likely to have an impact. So when I talked to the people in Gambella, and I talked to some of our clergy, one who's trained as a nurse, and I said, do you think people are ready to hear training on family planning? And he said, no, they're not ready. So I said, fine, that's okay. But I noticed, looking at Kenya, that as the means to care for your children grew, the fact that your children were now surviving, the older people were more slowly than the younger starting to listen to Christian values and get a sense you don't need a million kids. Slowly and naturally it started to progress. So you're part of a process there, and you do this and see if it works in your area. You do that and you ask questions and,
My Caribbean self is warring with my North American self on what time it is.
Oh, thanks. What time is it?
We ended 2 minutes ago. If you're Caribbean, keep going.
Thank you, though. Actually, why don't we close with a word of prayer? And would you pray for us? That would be great.
Heavenly Father, thank you for this time together. We lift up all the things, the concerns, the questions, the answers, in everybody's life, how they may be applied, the lessons we've learned here. We also ask a blessing on the ministry taking place in the Gambella region, that you continue to move forward in strength and power in your Holy Spirit, that lives would be changed physically and spiritually. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.